You think you know what family means? Wait until you hear what this woman discovered about the person cleaning her floors, and how one photograph in a shoebox turned two strangers into sisters. Caroline Ashford had everything: a penthouse in Charlotte, a husband in finance, and a housekeeper who had been scrubbing her bathrooms for 3 years. But when Caroline found a faded photograph tucked inside her housekeeper's coat pocket, she saw a face she recognized: her own mother, holding a baby Caroline had never known existed. What she did with that discovery, and what it cost her, you won't believe. Welcome everyone to another story. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from today? Florida? Lagos? Maybe Trinidad or the United Kingdom? Let us know. Now listen, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make your blood boil. Because this story isn't just about two sisters who didn't know each other. It's about the people who kept them apart. The lies, the silence, the choices that grown people made that hurt two innocent girls for 35 years. Can you believe that? 35 years of secrets. Let me tell you how it happened. Let me tell you about Caroline Ashford. Caroline was 38 years old. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and the room noticed. Tall, 5'9", with honey brown skin, high cheekbones, and dark hair she kept straightened and cut in a sharp bob that swung when she turned her head. She had her father's jaw, strong, angular, the kind that photographs well, and her mother's eyes, which were large and dark brown and held an expression that most people mistook for confidence, but was actually something closer to vigilance. Caroline was always watching, always assessing, always looking for the thing that didn't quite fit, the crack in the wall, the word that someone said too quickly or not quickly enough. She had been this way since she was a child, and she didn't know why. She would learn why. But not yet. Caroline wore expensive clothes. Not flashy, not designer logos on every surface, but expensive in the quiet way that signals taste and money without screaming about either. Silk blouses in muted colors, tailored pants, heels that cost $400 and made no sound on marble floors, which was exactly the point. She wore a diamond ring on her left hand, 2 carats, princess cut, from her husband Jonathan, and a thin gold chain around her neck with a small pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Her mother had given her the necklace when she was 16. Caroline had worn it every day since. She didn't know why her mother chose a crescent moon. She would learn that too. Caroline lived in a penthouse apartment in the South Park neighborhood of Charlotte, North Carolina, the kind of neighborhood where the lawns are professionally maintained and the cars in the driveways cost more than houses in other parts of the city. The penthouse was on the 14th floor. 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a kitchen with a marble island and a wine cooler, and appliances that looked like they belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the Charlotte skyline, the glass towers of Uptown, the highways curving through the city like ribbons, the distant blue line of the mountains on clear days. It was beautiful. It was cold. Not temperature cold, emotionally cold. The kind of home that looks perfect in photos but feels like a hotel when you're standing in it alone at 2 in the morning, wondering where your husband is. Jonathan Ashford worked in finance, private equity, the kind of work that involves a lot of phone calls and a lot of travel and a lot of dinners with clients that somehow always run past midnight. He was 42, handsome in a polished, forgettable way, with brown hair going gray at the temples and a smile that was technically perfect and emotionally empty. Jonathan was not a bad man. He was an absent one. He was present the way a photograph is present. You could see him, but you couldn't touch him. He was always somewhere else, even when he was in the room. Caroline had stopped asking where he went at night about 2 years ago because the answers were always reasonable and the truth was probably not, and Caroline had decided that not knowing was easier than knowing. That was a lie, she told herself. But people tell themselves lies to survive, and Caroline was surviving. They had no children. They had tried for 3 years. Doctors, treatments, procedures that were clinical and cold and expensive and unsuccessful. The doctors said there was no clear reason. Sometimes the body just says no. After the 3rd year, Jonathan said, "Maybe it's not meant to be." He said it the way he said everything, reasonably, calmly, with the detached tone of a man discussing a portfolio that underperformed expectations. Caroline heard the relief in his voice. She didn't argue. She went to the bathroom and sat on the floor and pressed her hands against her stomach and cried. Then she got up, washed her face, and went back to the living room and said, "You're probably right." That was the end of the conversation. That was 2 years ago. Now, let me tell you about the housekeeper, because this is where everything begins. Her name was Adama Diallo. Adama was 35 years old. She was small, 5'2", maybe 115 pounds, with dark skin, darker than Caroline's, and a round face with soft features that made her look younger than she was. She wore her hair in neat cornrows that she redid every 2 weeks, sitting on the floor of her apartment with a mirror propped against the wall, her arms aching from the hours of braiding. Her hands were rough, the hands of a woman who cleaned for a living, who scrubbed bathtubs and mopped floors and polished counters 5 days a week in other people's homes. The skin on her knuckles was cracked and dry, and she put lotion on them every night. Shea butter, the kind that came in a yellow tub from the African grocery store on Central Avenue. But the cracks never fully healed because the cleaning chemicals were stronger than the lotion, and the work never stopped long enough for her hands to recover. Adama had been cleaning Caroline's penthouse 3 days a week for 3 years, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She arrived at 8 in the morning, always on time, never late, never calling in sick, and she left at 2 in the afternoon. She cleaned with the quiet, thorough efficiency of a person who takes pride in invisible work. She scrubbed the bathrooms until the chrome fixtures gleamed. She mopped the marble floors on her hands and knees because she said the mop left streaks, and she didn't believe in streaks. She dusted the bookshelves, the window frames, the top of the refrigerator, the places nobody looks but Adama looked. She ironed the sheets. Who irons sheets? Adama ironed sheets, pressing them flat and smooth until the bed looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. Caroline barely knew her. 3 years and Caroline barely knew the woman who cleaned her home 3 times a week. She knew Adama's name. She knew she was from West Africa, Senegal, she thought, or maybe Guinea, she wasn't sure. She knew Adama was quiet, reliable, and thorough. She knew Adama took the bus because she sometimes saw her walking toward the bus stop on Providence Road when she looked out the window at 2 o'clock. She knew Adama liked chamomile tea because one morning Caroline found a chamomile tea bag in the kitchen trash, the cheap kind from the dollar store, and she realized Adama had been drinking tea on her break and cleaning up after herself so thoroughly that Caroline never noticed. That was it. 3 years of knowing. A name, a nationality, a tea preference, and the sound of a mop on marble. That was the sum total of what Caroline Ashford knew about the woman who touched every surface in her home. And that was about to change. Completely. Now, here is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. It happened on a Wednesday in March. Caroline was home, which was unusual because on Wednesdays, she usually had lunch with her friend Valerie at the restaurant in the Ritz-Carlton. But Valerie had canceled because her daughter was sick, and Caroline had nothing else to do, which is a particular kind of loneliness that rich women know well. She was sitting in the living room on the white sectional, scrolling her phone, when she heard a sound from the guest bedroom. A soft sound, like something falling, like a photo frame hitting carpet. Caroline got up and walked to the guest room. The door was open. Adama was inside, dusting the nightstand. On the floor, face down, was the photo frame. A silver frame with a photograph of Caroline's mother, Evelyn, that Caroline kept on the nightstand even though nobody ever slept in the guest room. It was there because Caroline liked knowing her mother's face was in the house, even in a room nobody used. Evelyn had died 3 years ago. Ovarian cancer. Fast, cruel, barely 6 months from diagnosis to death. Caroline hadn't fully grieved. She didn't know how to grieve a woman who had been more secret than mother. Adama was on her knees, picking up the frame. She turned it over. She looked at the photograph, and she froze. Not the casual freeze of someone who knocked something over and felt embarrassed. A deep freeze. A body freeze. The kind of freeze that happens when every system in your body stops at once because your brain is seeing something it cannot process. Adama stared at the photograph. Her mouth was slightly open. Her eyes were wide. The frame shook in her hands. Caroline stood in the doorway. "Adama? Is everything okay?" Adama looked up. Her face had changed. The calm, professional expression was gone. In its place was something raw and unguarded. Shock, recognition, pain, and something else that Caroline couldn't name. "Who is this woman?" Adama asked. Her voice was different. Lower, rougher, stripped of the careful politeness she usually wore like a uniform. "That's my mother," Caroline said. "Evelyn Ashford. She passed away 3 years ago." Adama looked at the photograph again. She touched the glass with her fingertip, gently, the way you touch something fragile, something sacred. "Her name," Adama said slowly. "Before she was Ashford. What was her name before she married?" Caroline felt something shift. A small shift, like a pebble moving at the top of a hill. Her maiden name was Evelyn Okafor. Why? Adama set the frame down on the nightstand. Carefully, precisely, exactly where it had been. She straightened up. She smoothed her apron. And then she did something Caroline had never seen her do in 3 years. She reached inside the pocket of her coat, the coat she hung on the back of the laundry room door every morning, and she pulled out a photograph of her own. It was small, creased, the edges soft from being handled. A Polaroid. The colors faded to that washed-out palette that old instant photos get. It showed a young woman, dark skin, beautiful, maybe 20 years old, holding a baby wrapped in a white blanket. The woman was smiling, but her eyes were scared. Behind her, partially visible, was a man's hand resting on her shoulder. Adama held the photograph out to Caroline. "This is my mother," Adama said. "Her name was Evelyn Okafor." The room went still. The air went still. Caroline's heartbeat went still. 1 beat, 2, 3 seconds of nothing, and then a pounding so hard she could feel it in her temples. She took the photograph. She looked at the young woman's face, and she recognized it immediately. Not from the photograph, but from the mirror. The jawline, the eyes, the way the mouth curved at the corners. It was Evelyn, her mother, 20 years old, holding a baby that was not Caroline. "That baby," Caroline whispered. "Who is that baby?" "That baby is me," Adama said. But this story is far from over. Caroline sat down on the guest bed. Her legs had decided they were finished working. She sat down hard, the mattress dipping beneath her, and she stared at the Polaroid, at her mother's young face, at the baby, at the man's hand on her mother's shoulder. "That's not possible," Caroline said. "My mother didn't... She never... I'm her only child." "That is what she told you," Adama said. Her voice was quiet, not angry, sad. The deep, old, permanent kind of sad that lives in a person's bones. But it is not the truth. Adama told her story. Standing in the guest bedroom of the penthouse, in her cleaning apron, with the bottle of dusting spray still in her hand, Adama Diallo told Caroline Ashford the truth that Evelyn Okafor had buried for 35 years. Evelyn was born in Nigeria, Enugu State, a city in the southeast. She was the daughter of a schoolteacher and a seamstress. She was smart, beautiful, ambitious. At 19, she won a scholarship to study nursing in Dakar, Senegal. That is where she met a man named Moussa Diallo, a Senegalese medical student, tall, kind, with gentle hands and a laugh that Evelyn would later describe to Adama as the sound of a man who is at peace with the world. They fell in love. They had a child, Adama. Born in a small hospital in Dakar, 3 kilograms, healthy, perfect. And then Evelyn's family found out. Evelyn's father, Caroline's grandfather, a man named Chief Albert Okafor, was furious. Not because Evelyn had a child out of wedlock, though that was bad enough in his eyes, because Moussa was Senegalese, because Moussa was Muslim, because Chief Okafor had plans for Evelyn that did not include a mixed nationality baby and a man from a different culture. Chief Okafor was a man of rigid traditions and enormous pride, and his daughter's choice had shattered both.
He gave Evelyn a choice. Come home to Nigeria, leave the child with Moose's family, pretend it never happened. Or be cut off. No family, no support, no name, no inheritance, nothing. Evelyn was 20 years old. She was in a foreign country. She had a newborn baby. She had no money of her own. The scholarship covered tuition, not life. And her father was the only safety net she had ever known. Evelyn chose to go home. She left Adama with Moose's mother, a kind woman named Fatou, who raised Adama in Dakar with love and warmth and stories about her mother that grew fainter every year, like a photograph left in the sun. Evelyn returned to Nigeria. She finished her nursing degree in Lagos. She met a man named Richard Ashford, American, black, from Charlotte, North Carolina, working in Nigeria for an oil company. They married. They moved to Charlotte. They had Caroline. And Evelyn never spoke about Adama again. Not to Richard, not to Caroline, not to anyone. She buried the truth the way a person buries a body, deep in the dark, and hoped nobody would ever dig it up. But Adama knew. Adama always knew. Fatou told her everything when Adama was old enough to understand. Told her about the scholarship and the hospital and the man named Chief Okafor who made his daughter choose between her baby and her family. Fatou showed Adama the Polaroid, the only photograph Evelyn left behind, and Adama carried it with her every day of her life, in every pocket of every coat, in every country she traveled to, looking for the woman in the picture. Adama came to America at 25. She worked as a cleaner, hotels, offices, houses. She moved from city to city, always searching. She knew her mother's married name, Ashford, because Fatou had found it years ago through a mutual acquaintance. She knew the city, Charlotte. But Charlotte is a big city, and Ashford is not an uncommon name. And Adama was a housekeeper who worked 12-hour days and took the bus and could not afford a private investigator. Then, 3 years ago, a cleaning agency sent her to a penthouse in South Park. She walked in. She saw the photograph on the guest room nightstand, and she recognized her mother's face immediately. But she didn't say anything. Not then. She came back the next day, and the next, and the next. For 3 years. She cleaned this woman's home. Her sister's home, though neither of them knew it yet, and she said nothing. Because Adama was afraid. Afraid of what Caroline would say. Afraid of being fired. Afraid of being rejected again, the way her mother had rejected her 35 years ago. I cleaned your toilets, Adama said, and her voice finally cracked. The first crack, the first break in the calm. I cleaned your floors. I ironed your sheets, and every day I looked at that photograph and I wanted to say, that is my mother too. But I couldn't. Because what if you didn't want me either? Caroline was crying. She was sitting on the guest bed, holding 2 photographs, one in a silver frame, one a faded Polaroid. And she was crying the way people cry when the ground beneath them shifts and they realize they have been standing on a lie their entire life. 3 years, Caroline said. You've known for 3 years? I've known since the first day. Why didn't you tell me? Adama looked at her, those soft, round eyes full of 35 years of waiting. Because the last time someone found out about me, they made my mother choose, and she didn't choose me. That sentence landed in the room like a stone in still water. Caroline felt it, the weight, the ripples, the way it disturbed everything and settled into everything and changed the shape of the surface forever. What happened next changed everything. Caroline spent the next 3 weeks investigating, not with anger, with the methodical, detail-oriented precision of a woman who read contracts like crime scenes. She called her mother's attorney. She pulled records. She found her grandfather Chief Okafor's letters, stored in a box in Evelyn's attic, which Caroline had inherited and never opened. She read them. Cold, rigid letters from a man who valued tradition over his own grandchild. She found Evelyn's diary, a small leather journal, locked, the key taped to the inside cover. She read entries from 1989, the year Adama was born. Evelyn wrote, I held her for 3 days.
3 days. She had Moose's forehead and my mouth. She was perfect. And I left her. God forgive me. I left her. Caroline read that entry 7 times. Each time, it hit harder. She found more. A letter Evelyn had written to Adama but never sent, dated 2015, 2 years before Evelyn died. It said, "My darling girl, I have looked for you every day of my life, not with my feet, with my heart. I have carried you in the part of me that nobody sees. I know this means nothing. I know words cannot replace 30 years of absence. But I want you to know, I never forgot you. I never stopped loving you. And the crescent moon I wear around my neck, I gave one to your sister too. One for each of my daughters. One for each half of my heart." Caroline's hand went to her throat. The crescent moon pendant. The necklace Evelyn gave her at 16. She had always wondered why a crescent moon. Now she knew. A crescent moon is not whole. It is half. And Evelyn had been carrying 2 halves her whole life. Caroline called Adama that evening. "Come to the penthouse tomorrow. Not to clean. To talk. Please." Adama came. She wore her regular clothes, not the cleaning apron, not the uniform. Jeans, a blouse, flat shoes. She looked different out of the apron. Smaller somehow, but more herself. She sat at the kitchen island on a stool, her hands folded in her lap. Caroline set 2 things on the counter, the Polaroid and the unsent letter. "Read this," Caroline said. Adama read the letter. Slowly, her lips moved with each word. When she reached the line about the crescent moon, she made a sound, a small, involuntary sound like air escaping from a sealed room. Caroline unclasped the necklace from her own neck. She held it out. "This is yours too," Caroline said. "One for each daughter." That's what she meant. "I can't take your necklace." "You're not taking it. I'm giving it to you, the way she should have given it to you 35 years ago." Adama took the necklace. She held it in her palm, the thin gold chain pooling like liquid, the small crescent moon resting in the center of her rough, cracked, lotion-softened hand. She closed her fingers around it and pressed her fist against her chest. "I have a sister," Adama whispered. "I have a sister." "You have a sister," Caroline said. "And she's been looking at you for 3 years and didn't know she was looking at family." They stood in the kitchen of the penthouse. 2 women, one on each side of the marble island, separated by money and class and culture, and 35 years of their mother's silence. And they cried. Not the polite kind. The loud, messy, ugly, beautiful kind. The kind that sounds like something breaking and something being built at the same time. Over the next 6 months, Caroline and Adama rebuilt what Evelyn had broken. It was not easy. It was not quick. Trust doesn't grow overnight, especially between 2 people who have every reason not to trust. Caroline, because she had been lied to by her mother for 38 years. Adama, because she had been abandoned by her mother at 3 days old. But they tried. They had dinner together every Thursday, at Caroline's penthouse at first, then at Adama's apartment, a small 1-bedroom in East Charlotte, with mismatched furniture and a kitchen that smelled like Senegalese cooking. Thieboudienne, yassa, mafé. Flavors Caroline had never tasted, but that felt somehow familiar. The way a song you've never heard can feel like something you've known your whole life. Adama taught Caroline to cook. Standing side by side in Adama's tiny kitchen, chopping onions and pounding spices in a wooden mortar, they found a rhythm. Adama explained each dish the way Fatou had taught her, with stories. "This is your grandmother Fatou's recipe. She made it every Friday. She said the secret is patience. You let the onions go low and slow until they become sweet." Caroline listened with the same intensity she brought to contracts and legal documents. Except this time, the details mattered in a way that quarterly reports never had. Caroline told Adama about Evelyn, the real Evelyn, not the secret keeper, but the mother, the woman who sang in the kitchen while making jollof rice, the woman who braided Caroline's hair on Sunday mornings and told her stories about Nigeria,
about the red earth and the market women and the sound of rain on a tin roof. Stories that Caroline now realized were also about Adama. Evelyn had been talking about her other daughter all along. She just never said her name. Caroline also made a decision about Jonathan. She looked at her marriage, really looked at it, the way Adama had looked at the photograph, with clear eyes and an honest heart, and she saw what was there. A beautiful apartment, an absent husband, a diamond ring, an empty nursery. A life that looked perfect from the outside and felt like a hotel on the inside. She asked Jonathan for a divorce. He didn't fight it. He said, "I think that's probably best." The same reasonable, detached tone. Caroline didn't cry.
She had used up all her tears on something that mattered more. She sold the penthouse. She bought a house, a real house, a 3-bedroom with a yard and a porch, in a neighborhood in Plaza Midwood where the houses were old and the porches had rocking chairs and the neighbors actually knew each other's names. She moved in on a Saturday in September. Adama helped her carry boxes. They painted the kitchen together. Yellow, bright, warm. And Adama hung a photograph on the wall beside the stove. The Polaroid, now in a proper frame. Evelyn at 20, holding baby Adama, scared and smiling. Next to it, Caroline hung a new photograph, taken on her phone, printed at the drugstore. It showed Caroline and Adama standing on the porch of the new house, arms around each other, smiling. 2 sisters. One who had everything and didn't know what she was missing. One who had nothing and knew exactly what she was looking for. Adama stopped cleaning houses. Caroline helped her enroll in a certified nursing assistant program, the same career path Evelyn had started in Dakar before Chief Okafor called her home. Adama was the oldest student in the class. She was also the best. She passed every exam. She graduated at the top. She got a job at a community health clinic in East Charlotte, working with immigrant families, many of them from West Africa, many of them carrying secrets of their own. On the day Adama graduated, Caroline was in the front row. She was wearing the crescent moon necklace. She had a new one made, identical, so they could each have one. When Adama walked across the stage, Caroline stood up and cheered so loud the people around her stared. She didn't care. Her sister was walking across a stage, and Caroline was there to see it, and that was all that mattered. After the ceremony, they sat in the car in the parking lot. Adama was holding her certificate. Caroline was holding 2 cups of tea, chamomile, the cheap kind from the dollar store, because Adama said the expensive kind tasted the same and cost 3 times as much. "I need to tell you something," Adama said. "What?" "I forgave her. Mama. I forgave her a long time ago, before I even found you. Fatou taught me that. She said, 'Your mother didn't leave you because she didn't love you. She left because the world gave her an impossible choice, and she was too young to know there was a third option.' What was the third option? Fighting, saying no, telling Chief Okafor that his traditions were wrong and that her baby was more important than his pride." Adama paused. "But she was 20 years old, Caroline. 20. And she was alone. And the world is very hard on 20-year-old women who are alone." Caroline looked out the windshield. The parking lot was emptying. The sun was going down. The sky was the color of peach and gold. "Do you think she ever came looking for you?" Caroline asked. Adama reached into her pocket. She pulled out a piece of paper, folded, old, the same kind of lined paper Evelyn used for her diary. It was a list, written in Evelyn's handwriting, dates and cities. "I found this in the diary box," Adama said. She wrote down every trip she ever took to Senegal. 7 trips, Caroline. Over 20 years. She went to Dakar 7 times. She never found me because Fatou had moved to a different neighborhood. But she went. She looked. She tried. Caroline took the list. She read the dates. 1995, 1998, 2001, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016. 7 trips, 7 attempts, 7 failures. And not once did Evelyn tell anyone she was going. Not Richard, not Caroline. She went alone, carrying a photograph and a crescent moon and 35 years of guilt, searching for a daughter she had left behind. Caroline pressed the list against her chest. "She tried," she whispered. "She never stopped trying." "No," Adama said. "She didn't."
And neither did I. And now we're here. They sat in the car as the sky turned dark. Two sisters drinking cheap chamomile tea, holding pieces of their mother's broken heart, learning that love doesn't always arrive on time, but when it arrives, no matter how late, it is still love, still real, still worth every year of waiting. One evening, a few months later, Caroline and Adama were sitting on the porch of the yellow house in Plaza Midwood. The air was warm. Fireflies were blinking in the yard. The smell of Adama's mafe, peanut stew, Fatu's recipe, drifted through the screen door. Adama's daughter, a girl named Fatu, 7 years old, named after the grandmother who raised Adama, came running out onto the porch. She was holding a crayon drawing. She had drawn two women standing side by side, holding hands. One was taller, one was shorter. Both were smiling. Above their heads, she had drawn a crescent moon. "Auntie Caroline," Fatu said, holding up the drawing. "This is you and Mama, and the moon is for Grandma Evelyn, because Mama said Grandma is watching us from the moon." Caroline looked at the drawing. She looked at Adama. She looked at this child, this niece she didn't know she had, this girl with Evelyn's eyes and Moose's forehead and Adama's round cheeks, and she felt something she had been missing her entire life without knowing it was missing. Wholeness. The feeling of being whole. "Your mama is right," Caroline said. "Grandma is watching, and I think she's very, very happy." Fatu smiled and ran back inside to get more crayons. Adama reached over and took Caroline's hand. Her rough, cracked, shea-buttered hand. Caroline held it, her smooth, manicured hand wrapped around her sister's working hand. Two hands, two lives, two halves of a crescent moon, finally together. And on the wall inside the kitchen, next to the stove, the two photographs hung side by side. Evelyn at 20, holding a baby she would leave behind. Caroline and Adama, at 38 and 35, holding each other, found at last. The crescent moon pendant caught the porch light and glowed, small, gold, incomplete by design. Because a crescent moon is not meant to be whole on its own. It is meant to remind you that the other half is out there, somewhere, in the dark, waiting to be found. I hope this story stays with you for a while. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments what you would have done differently. We love reading your thoughts. Until next time.